Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining me. Today, we will be examining an upcoming weather pattern that is, in my professional opinion, one of the most significant I have seen for early to mid-December in all my 7 or 8 years of producing these updates for you here on the channel. It truly appears that we are in for a very cold period with repeated Arctic blasts and multiple opportunities for snowfall. We currently have a major snowstorm moving across the Midwest, the Plains, the Great Lakes, and the Ohio Valley. We will also be looking ahead to a system on the East Coast in just a few days, and now we are seeing the models begin to suggest even more activity is on the way. We have an exceptionally active pattern ahead of us. So let us begin by looking at the current conditions. First, let's take a quick look at this ongoing and massive snow system. You can see just how many states are being significantly impacted by this event. As we zoom in here, we see parts of Kansas, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and Michigan, where Ohio State and Michigan are playing at 12 o'clock. That game will likely be over by the time you are watching this. It is just remarkable to see Indiana, Ohio, and even northern Kentucky experiencing impacts from this system. The primary area of heavy snowfall is located right in here for these communities. We are seeing exceptionally heavy snowfall that is already accumulating, making for a very serious situation. Now let's move on to the model guidance, and we will begin with the European model. We can see this system moving through. I have been mentioning in our discussion channel, which you can find linked in the description and the pinned comment below, and we would be delighted to have you join us, that if this were an evening game, this is 7 in the evening on Saturday, right there in the lovely town of Ann Arbor, Michigan. We would be seeing more moderate to heavy snowfall moving in. The field would likely be covered in snow, and the visibility would be very poor. So we did miss out on what could have been a truly memorable situation, although I do expect some flakes to be flying throughout that game, which will be a wonderful sight to see. In any case, that is enough about football, as this is a weather channel after all. I must remind myself of that from time to time. By tomorrow, we see that low-pressure system moves up into Canada. Some snowfall will remain over the Great Lakes, and we will begin to see some more snow in the interior Northeast, mostly light to moderate as this system passes through. By the time we reach Monday, the first of the month, that system will have moved out, but we can already see our second snowstorm beginning to form. Here we have this northern stream of energy and this southern stream of energy where both jet streams are converging. This is really going to come together to create an interesting situation for the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. So let us watch how this plays out. That is Monday, the 1st, and as we head into the morning of the 2nd, we see a great deal of that snowfall over the Midwest. It will move from the Ohio Valley into parts of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, where it is really going to intensify by the time we reach that evening. This is 7 in the evening on Tuesday, and we see moderate to heavy snowfall for Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania. Northern New Jersey and New York City are right on the edge, as are coastal Connecticut, Rhode Island, and Boston. Southeastern Massachusetts is right there in that zone, where it could be either snow, rain, or a mix of both. If we see this system trend any further south or colder, that will become a very significant snow event for them. If we see any northward trends, however, we will likely see more of a rain event. So these areas are still uncertain, and that will be a last-minute determination. But we are expecting heavy snowfall for southern New England, southern New York, northern New Jersey, and much of Pennsylvania, as well as back into Ohio and West Virginia by this point. A little later in the day, we see this low-pressure system is very strong. It is a 985 millibar low here, or I should say later in the evening. This is 1 in the morning on December 3rd, which will be a Wednesday, a 985. This is a very strong nor'easter just offshore. We have heavy snowfall from southern New York into southern New England and then into parts of southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire, and coastal Maine, where significant snow accumulation is expected. I believe the southern New England and southern New York area is the one to watch for potentially the highest snowfall from this event. As we continue, this storm comes to an end by the time we reach later in the morning on Wednesday the 3rd. It is all finished. We are then left with very cold air after that storm moves through with lake effect snowfall occurring. We do get a clipper system here, as you can see, around Thursday the 4th, which moves into the northern plains and upper Midwest. This brings some light to moderate snowfall to the Midwest Great Lakes and parts of the Northeast around the 5th and 6th. At this very same time, we have a great deal of northern energy diving southward and a perfect jet stream pattern that would set up beautifully for parts of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast to see a snow event. However, this southern stream is just too far south on this particular model run. This forecast is for about 6 or 7 days from now, so in theory, this could be a time frame to watch around the 5th, 6th, and 7th. I am certainly watching that period for perhaps another interesting situation for some of these areas. We can see it does not quite come together on this model run, but we do get the low developing. It is just positioned too far to the south. Then we see another storm system. It affects parts of the Midwest, the Great Lakes, the Northeast, and the Mid-Atlantic around the 7th, 8th, and 9th as more Arctic air moves in. Then we get this interesting setup once again. An active northern jet is moving through, but a bit farther to the south this time. This southern jet is trying to merge with it. We already have a strong low there over the Gulf states, and as you can see on this model run for the 9th. Here we see a deeper southern winter storm possibly affecting Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Virginia. The pressure is 989 or 998 millibars there off the coast of South Carolina. This is a true nor'easter. It appears to want to track just like this. This would present an opportunity for these areas, but this is far out. This is about 11 days away, so please take this with a grain of salt. This forecast is certainly subject to change, to say the very least. As we head towards Wednesday, we see this system begin to move up the coast, bringing some heavier snowfall to the upper southeast and lower mid-Atlantic, but then it does not quite make it all the way up to the northeast. We continue to see very, very cold air. And interestingly, while this storm is happening, we also have a clipper system. It is moving through at the same time up here in the upper Midwest with some light to moderate snowfall. That system does make its way through the Midwest, the Great Lakes, the Ohio Valley, and into the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast as well. Then we get another clipper system here for the Midwest, Great Lakes, Ohio Valley, Mid-Atlantic, and Northeast. And this one, as you can see, it moves through right to this point. The jet stream, however, is typically diving a little bit farther south than that by the time it arrives here. And we do have this piece of southern energy that looks primed to take a track up the eastern states. Again, there's plenty of cold air in place. And this could put these areas on high alert once more. So that amounts to, 7, 8, or perhaps 9 opportunities for snow systems here over the next 15 days. It is an incredibly active period. So let's see where the GFS model agrees. We obviously have our current snow system, and we do see the East Coast system as well. On this model, the rain-snow line is a little farther northward. We can see New York City is not expected to see snow. They are definitely in the rain, as are Providence, Boston, and Philadelphia. It is even more clearly defined here. So this shows a track that is a little bit farther northward, favoring the interior mid-Atlantic and northeast. There is still some disagreement among the models, and then that system moves out. We do get some frequent clipper systems moving through, and then another threat for the East Coast around the 6th or 7th. Again, this is the same time frame I mentioned earlier to watch on the European model. So we do see some snowfall appearing here within the 10-day range, so this is not necessarily a long-range forecast. We certainly have some time to watch this develop, and that system does move up into the northeast. And then we get this kind of setup where if there were Arctic air moving into the east, you would have an ample amount of energy out here. But what happens is we end up with the northern jet moving through with a weaker low pressure system here. Our southern jet is separated, and we have another weaker low down here as well. So the energy remains separated on the GFS model run around this time frame. We do get another threat for the East Coast and the Ohio Valley area around the 8th, 9th, and 10th. This is a similar storm signal to what the European model shows. And then we see more of a Midwest and Great Lakes cutter type of storm there around the 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th. Finally, the GFS model brings us into a warmer pattern. You might recall that over the last few model runs, the GFS model originally said, hey, around the 8th, we're going to move to a warmer pattern. Then yesterday, it pushed that back to the 10th when it thought we would see a warmer pattern. And now it is showing a warm-up after the 12th or 13th. So it keeps pushing that date back by multiple days with every single new model run. This is not a good sign for confidence in some sort of a flip to warmer temperatures. Of course, it could happen. But when we see the model kicking the can further and further down the road like that, it is typically a sign that it is grasping at straws. We will see what ends up happening with that. Looking at the total precipitation on the European model, you would never believe we are in a La Nina because you have this very, very active southern jet moving through and off the East Coast. This is very characteristic of an El Nino, but you have that Arctic air that you typically see in more of a weak La Nina or a neutral ENSO pattern showing up. I wanted to make the argument today that based on everything I have seen and what we now know is coming, I feel the conditions we are seeing are much more like a neutral ENSO pattern compared to a La Nina. That is just my observation so far. Obviously, there is a great deal of winter. Well, all of winter is still ahead of us, really. Meteorological winter starts on December 1st in just 2 days. So there is plenty of time for things to change a bit, but for now, neutral ENSO-type conditions are much more of what we are observing. Looking at the anomalies again, you have this active clipper track moving through here, and then you have the southern jet with the nor'easters sometimes in combination. I have to point out that we have drawn comparisons all year long to 2013, and also to 2014 and 2014 to 2015. Those are 2 of the strongest analogs for this winter. Those years featured frequent clippers and frequent nor'easters. Sometimes the 2 types of storms would combine where we would see a clipper system transfer its energy and move up off the East Coast. We call that a Miller B nor'easter, where it moves halfway off the coast and then redevelops instead of forming fully over the ocean, along the East Coast. Regardless, it is a very interesting comparison we are observing here. According to the European model, the total snowfall will be quite significant for the plains, the Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the Ohio Valley resulting from our current snow system and frequent clipper systems. Following that, we expect a great deal of snowfall for the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast from the upcoming 2nd and 3rd systems. We are also tracking another system that could extend this snowfall into more of the southern mid-Atlantic region as well. This is certainly a very active pattern. The GFS model, however, does not include that southern nor'easter, but it does show numerous systems moving through the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes, and the Ohio Valley. It also indicates 1 or 2 coastal systems for the mid-Atlantic and Northeast. So, we are seeing a good amount of agreement. Regarding temperatures, I will say the European model is forecasting the colder of the 2 scenarios. We are currently under the first Arctic blast. A second Arctic blast is expected to move in for the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th of the month, and then we will see our 3rd Arctic blast as well as our 4th by the 7th. Then our 5th, which looks to be more significant, is forecast for the 7th, 8th, and 9th, and then it appears we are getting our 5th or 6th one around the 13th and 14th. The forecast is very similar to yesterday's with frequent Arctic blasts and the potential for frequent snow systems. That combination can be quite challenging, and I will say this is a remarkable pattern for the first half of December. In all the winters I have been forecasting, I have seen active late Decembers, and of course into the January timeframe, with last year being a great example, but for early December it has been a very long time. Looking at the GFS model's cold air forecast, we have Arctic blast number 1, the 2nd moves in, and the 3rd is very intense. The 4th and 5th are less intense, as is the 6th. These are more like typical cool downs. After that, we do see a shift to a warmer pattern, as you can see for the 13th, 14th, and 15th. That is approximately 13 or 14 days from now. Our confidence in a pattern change that far in the future is not exceptionally high, although it is a signal worth watching. We will monitor that for certain. The ensemble models, for the 4th through the 14th on the European ensemble model, clearly show warmth in the west and a cold in the east pattern. It is a very consistent and clear signal. There is really no ambiguity there. This is what the model is forecasting for the 4th through the 14th. Looking at the GFS ensemble model, it shows the warmth out west in a very similar fashion. It does indicate some Arctic air making its way into the east, but it appears less potent and less frequent throughout that entire time period. There is also a bit more of a southeastern ridge of high pressure. It is very minor, but there are obviously some warmer temperatures indicated on this model for the deep southeast. So, while there are small disagreements, the overall premise is much the same on both of these models. It is quite a remarkable setup. With all of that being said, I hope you will consider subscribing. We post new forecast updates every single day. You can even select the bell icon to receive daily notifications when we upload so you do not miss one. Please be sure to like the video if you did find it helpful.